It was a regular Saturday afternoon. I had just finished mowing the lawn and was wiping the sweat off my forehead when I heard the knock at the door. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just a delivery guy dropping off a package, but the knock came again, steady, firm. Not impatient, not frantic, but like someone standing there wasn't going to leave until I opened up. I grabbed a rag off the counter and opened the door, expecting maybe a solicitor or one of the neighborhood kids asking to rake leaves for a few bucks. Instead, it was Frank, my next-door neighbor. Now, Frank wasn't the chatty type. He was in his 60s, ex-cop, the kind of guy who didn't smile unless he had to. We'd been neighbors for 6 years, exchanged small talk about the weather or football, but he never knocked on my door. That alone made my stomach tighten. "Got a minute?" he asked, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his cargo shorts. Something about the way he said it, the way his eyes didn't quite meet mine, made my skin crawl. "Yeah," I said slowly, stepping onto the porch and pulling the door shut behind me. Frank took a deep breath, like he didn't want to say what he was about to say. "I wasn't going to tell you this," he started, and my heart jumped straight into my throat. But I thought about it, and I figured if it was me, I'd want to know. Know what? I didn't ask, just kept my arms crossed, waiting. "I saw Lisa with the plumber on Tuesday," he finally said. Not just talking either. They were in his van for about 20 minutes. I was trimming my hedges, had a clear view. When they got out, she kissed him. He let that sink in before adding, "Didn't look like the first time either." I stared at him, barely hearing the birds chirping, the faint sound of a lawnmower down the street. I forced a laugh, a hollow, humorless sound. "Come on, Frank. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't sure," he said. I thought about keeping my mouth shut, but if someone saw my wife sneaking around, I want to know. "I'm sorry, man. I didn't say anything. Couldn't." My mind was scrambling for some kind of explanation, but every possibility I reached for slipped through my fingers. Lisa? My wife? The woman who complained about cheaters every time we watched some trashy reality show? The one who made a big deal out of loyalty, who used to roll her eyes at women who got caught having affairs? Frank was still watching me, like he was waiting for me to punch a hole in the wall or break down right there on the porch. But I didn't do either of those things. I just swallowed, nodded, and muttered, "Thanks for telling me." Then I turned and went inside. Lisa was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, flipping through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. Her hair was damp. She must have just gotten out of the shower. She looked up when she saw me. "What did Frank want?" she asked, taking a sip of her coffee. I stared at her, studied every inch of her face. Her smooth skin, the way her lips wrapped around the coffee cup, the way she blinked at me like I was just some regular guy standing in his own kitchen, not her husband who just found out she'd been screwing the damn plumber. I didn't answer. I just walked over to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and took a long sip, trying to cool down the heat rising in my chest. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to tell me or what?" I leaned against the counter, gripping the water bottle so hard the plastic crinkled under my fingers. "He said he saw you with the plumber on Tuesday." For a second, just a second, I caught it, that tiny flicker of something in her eyes. Like a hesitation, like her brain was scrambling for the right reaction. Then it was gone, replaced by an annoyed scoff. "Oh my God," she groaned, rolling her eyes. "That man is so nosy." "Seriously?" She laughed, like it was some kind of joke. "He said he saw you get into his van," I said, voice steady, almost too calm. "Saw you in there for 20 minutes. And when you got out, you kissed him." Lisa set her coffee down with a little too much force. Unbelievable. First of all, I was not in his van for 20 minutes. That's ridiculous. She folded her arms. And second of all, I didn't kiss him. Maybe Frank's eyesight isn't as great as he thinks. I just stared at her. She scoffed again. "Look, the plumber came because the upstairs sink was leaking. I was outside checking my phone while he was finishing up. We talked for a few minutes, and I thanked him for his help. Maybe it looked like something else from far away, but I didn't kiss him." There was a challenge in her tone, like she was daring me to accuse her again. My hands clenched. "So, you're saying Frank just made it up?" "I'm saying maybe he saw what he wanted to see," she snapped. "Or maybe he just likes stirring up drama." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. But I also wasn't about to start throwing accusations when I didn't have anything concrete yet. So I just nodded, acting like I was letting it go, and said, "Yeah, maybe." Lisa's shoulders relaxed. She smiled like she had just won some kind of battle. Good? Because honestly, I don't have the patience for nonsense like this. She stood up, stretched, and kissed me on the cheek. I'm gonna go grab some groceries. You need anything? I shook my head. She walked out the door like nothing had happened. And I stood there, gripping the water bottle, so tightly my knuckles turned white. Lisa had just lied to my face. I knew it, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I was going to find out the truth. And when I did, she was going to regret ever thinking I wouldn't. Lisa left for the store like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just been accused of cheating. Like she hadn't just lied straight to my face. That alone told me everything I needed to know. A woman who wasn't guilty would have been pissed. She would have demanded to go straight to Frank and clear things up, drag me out there with her, call the plumber or something. But Lisa? She brushed it off, laughed about it, and walked out the damn door. I stood there for a long time, gripping that water bottle until my fingers ached. Then, finally, I tossed it into the sink and went upstairs. I walked into our bedroom, stood in the middle of the floor, and looked around. Everything looked the same. Our neatly made bed. Lisa's makeup scattered across the vanity. A half-read book on the nightstand. But it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like my bedroom anymore. It felt like some stranger space, some place where I was an outsider looking in. I stared at our bed. The bed we'd shared for years. Had she done it there? With him? The thought made my stomach twist, and I had to take a deep breath to push it down. Instead of standing there driving myself insane, I went straight for her nightstand. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I knew I'd find something. People like Lisa, people who get comfortable lying, they always slip up. Her phone charger was still plugged in, but her phone was gone, probably in her purse. A few receipts were crumpled in the drawer. One caught my eye. It was from a cafe across town. Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. A plumber doesn't fix a sink in a coffee shop. I grabbed the receipt and stuffed it in my pocket. Then I moved to the dresser. Lisa wasn't the type to keep a diary, but she did keep a stack of junk in her top drawer. Random papers, business cards, coupons she'd forget to use. My fingers skimmed through it all until they landed on something that didn't belong. A small, folded note. I opened it. The handwriting wasn't Lisa's. See you Tuesday. Can't wait. No name. No signature. Just that. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. Everything inside me screamed to call her, to demand an explanation right then and there. But I wasn't going to do that. Not yet. I needed to be smart. If she was already lying, she'd just lie again. I needed proof. I put everything back exactly how I found it, making sure nothing looked disturbed. Then I grabbed my keys and walked outside. Frank was still out front, watering his lawn like he hadn't just set off a bomb in my life. I walked over. Got a second? He shut off the hose and nodded. What's up? I pulled the receipt out of my pocket and held it up. You said you saw them on Tuesday. What time? Frank frowned, thinking. I'd say around 3:30, maybe a little later. Why? I handed him the receipt. He looked it over, his frown deepening. Cafe across town, I said. So if she was with the plumber at our house, why is there a receipt from a coffee shop around the same time? Frank let out a low whistle. Damn. You thinking she met him there first? I'm thinking she met someone there first. Frank shook his head. Look, I don't know what's going on, but if you need anything, you let me know. I nodded. Appreciate it. I went back inside and sat down on the couch, gripping the receipt like it was some kind of lifeline. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Lisa was lying, and I was about to catch her in it. I sat on the couch, staring at the cafe receipt, my mind racing. Lisa had been so damn sure of herself when she brushed off Frank's accusation. Too sure, like she had an explanation already prepared. But this receipt, this was something she didn't expect me to find. I checked the time. Lisa had been gone for almost 40 minutes. Probably still at the store, or maybe she was meeting up with someone again. That thought made my blood pressure spike, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to jump to conclusions. I was going to get the truth. I pulled out my phone and searched for the cafe's number. A second later, I was dialing. Hey, I was wondering if you could help me out, I said when a woman answered. My wife was there on Tuesday afternoon, around 3:45. She thinks she might have lost something, and I'm trying to retrace her steps. Any chance you remember her? Redhead, mid-30s, wearing. I hesitated, realizing I had no idea what she was wearing that day. Luckily, the woman didn't seem to care. "We get a lot of customers, sir. You might want to check with her directly." I forced a chuckle. Yeah, no worries. "Do you happen to have security cameras?" A pause. "We do, but we can't share footage with non-law enforcement." "Of course, I understand. Thanks anyway." I hung up, gripping the phone tight. So that was a dead end for now. But I still had options. Lisa's car was still in the driveway, which meant she had taken my truck to the store. That gave me access to hers. I walked outside, unlocked the car, and slid into the driver's seat. The first thing I checked was the glove compartment. A bunch of crumpled napkins, an old insurance card, a bottle of lotion. Nothing useful. Then I checked the center console. That's where I found it. A second phone. I stared at it, my mind blank for a moment. Lisa had never mentioned having another phone. I picked it up, pressed the power button. It was locked, of course, but just the fact that it existed was enough. What the hell was she doing with a second phone? Before I could think too much, I heard the sound of tires rolling up the driveway. Lisa was back. I shoved the phone into my pocket, shut the console, and got out of the car just as she was stepping out of the truck, carrying a couple of grocery bags. "Hey," she said, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Can you grab the rest?" I nodded, walking over, keeping my face neutral. "Yeah." I reached into the truck bed, grabbed the other bags, and followed her inside. She started unpacking, humming to herself, completely unaware that I was standing there watching her. Lisa was good, too good, but I was getting better. I slipped the second phone into my hoodie pocket and watched as she put the milk in the fridge. "So," I said casually, "what took you so long? Store busy?" She glanced at me over her shoulder. "Yeah, weekend rush. You know how it is?" I nodded like I believed her. I wanted to confront her right then and there, slam the phone onto the counter, and demand an explanation. But I held back. Lisa was a liar. And liars? They panic when you catch them off guard. I needed to hit her when she least expected it. And when I did, she was going to have nowhere to run. The bedroom was quiet except for the sound of Lisa's slow, steady breathing. She was out cold, her body curled slightly away from me, her hair spread across the pillow. Looking at her, you'd think she was just another tired wife sleeping beside her husband, not someone sneaking around behind his back. But I knew better now. The secret phone sat heavy in my pocket, like a lead weight pressing against my ribs. I had found it tucked away in her car, hidden like some dirty little secret she never meant for me to find. And now that I had it, there was no turning back. I glanced at the clock. 2:13 a.m. If I was going to do this, now was the time. Carefully, I slid out of bed, moving slow so the mattress wouldn't shift too much. Lisa sighed softly in her sleep, but didn't stir. I grabbed my hoodie off the chair and slipped out of the room, padding barefoot down the hall to the bathroom. Once inside, I shut the door and locked it. Then I turned on the exhaust fan, not too loud, but just enough to cover any sound I made. I pulled out the phone and pressed the power button. The screen lit up. Enter passcode. I stared at the numbers, my mind racing. Lisa and I had been together long enough for me to know most of her passwords, at least the ones she used regularly. Our anniversary? Her birthday? Maybe the last 4 digits of her phone number? I tried each one. Nothing. Then I paused. Lisa thought she was smarter than me. She thought she could hide this, that I'd never even think to look. But what if she was careless? What if she used something simple, something tied to her own lies? I took a deep breath and typed in the plumber's phone number. The screen unlocked. A cold, electric shock ran through my veins. I was in. The home screen was empty, just a plain black background. No apps except the basics. No social media, no email, nothing that might normally be on a personal phone. Just calls, texts. This wasn't her second phone. This was a burner phone. My hands tightened around it as I swiped open the messages. And that's when I found them. The first conversation was with an unknown number. Tuesday. Usual time. Can't wait. Me too. I miss you. Did you talk to him? Not yet. I need more time. You keep saying that. I'm getting impatient. Please, just wait a little longer. My breath came in short, angry bursts as I stared at the screen. This wasn't just about screwing around. There was something else happening here. Who the hell was she talking to? I scrolled back through the conversation, reading months' worth of messages, different meeting locations, hotel rooms, different days and times. It was all planned. She had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. But she wasn't just sneaking around for sex. There was something else going on. Then I found the last message. A picture. It wasn't of Lisa. It was of my house, taken from outside. At night, I stared at it, my pulse pounding. The message attached was just one word. Soon. The timestamp, 2 nights ago. My stomach clenched. This wasn't just an affair. This was something worse. I backed out of the conversation and checked the call log. There were dozens of missed calls from the same unknown number, some recent, others dating back months. Whoever this was, they weren't just some casual fling. They wanted something from Lisa, and from the looks of it, they were getting impatient. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing. I had to wake Lisa up. I had to demand answers right now. But then another thought crept in. She had been lying to me for God knows how long. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie again. I needed more. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I said anything. I put the phone on silent and shoved it back into my hoodie pocket. Then I flushed the toilet, just to make it seem like I had actually used the bathroom, and slipped back into the bedroom. Lisa was still asleep, peaceful, unbothered, like she hadn't been texting some faceless stranger about me. I slid under the covers, staring at the ceiling. My mind was running 1,000 miles an hour, piecing everything together. She had been sneaking around behind my back. She had been meeting up with someone regularly. And now, whoever it was, they were watching my house. What the hell had I just stumbled into? I turned my head slightly, watching Lisa's slow, steady breathing. Tomorrow I was going to find out, and I had a feeling it was going to change everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that damn picture, the dark outline of my own house, captured from somewhere outside, like a warning or a threat. Lisa's breathing was steady beside me, completely undisturbed. She had no idea that I had her burner phone, no idea that I had seen the messages. She had no idea that I was done playing dumb. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind running through every possibility. Who the hell was she texting? Was it the plumber? Or was this something even bigger than an affair? And what do they mean by soon? I had 2 choices. I could wake Lisa up right then and demand answers, or I could play it smarter. I decided to play it smart. Lisa was good at lying. Too good. If I hit her with this now, she'd deny, twist, gaslight me until I started second-guessing myself. No, if I wanted the truth, I needed to catch her off guard. I needed to set a trap. The morning act. By the time Lisa stirred awake, I had already been up for an hour, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, pretending to scroll through my phone like it was just another morning. She padded into the kitchen, stretching. "Morning," she said, rubbing her eyes. I glanced up at her, forcing a neutral expression. "Morning." She walked over to the fridge, pulling out the orange juice. She looked normal. No guilt, no nerves, just the same woman I had been waking up next to for years. I sipped my coffee. "Got any plans today?" She paused for just a fraction of a second. Most people wouldn't have caught it, but I wasn't most people. "I was thinking of running a few errands," she said casually. "Maybe hitting the gym?" That was a lie. I knew it. I had read the messages. She had plans today, but they had nothing to do with errands or the gym. "Sounds good," I said, acting like I believed her. Lisa sat across from me with her coffee, scrolling through her real phone like everything was fine. But I knew better. I had her burner phone. I had her messages, and I was going to use them against her. The first move, I waited until Lisa left the house before I made my next move. She kissed me on the cheek, told me she'd be back later, and then walked out the door with her gym bag. The second she was gone, I pulled out the burner phone and turned it on. New message. Unknown number. Same time today? I stared at it, my pulse kicking up. This was it. This was my chance. I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the screen. If I played this wrong, Lisa would know I had the phone. But if I played it right, I typed, "Running late. Meet at the house instead?" I hit send and waited. A minute later, the reply came. "Unknown number. Can't. Too risky." I clenched my jaw. Whoever this was, they weren't stupid. They were careful. I needed to get ahead of them. I grabbed my keys and left the house. I had a pretty good idea where Lisa was going. The cafe receipt, the old messages, it all pointed to one place. I was going to catch her in the act. The discovery. I parked 2 blocks away from the cafe and walked. I didn't want to risk her seeing my truck. When I got to the cafe, I found a table outside partially hidden by a planter. From there, I had a perfect view of the entrance. Then I waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. And then I saw her. Lisa walked up to the cafe wearing leggings and a zip-up hoodie, her hair tied back. She didn't look like a woman sneaking around. She looked like any other wife out running errands. But I knew better. She stepped inside, and a minute later, a man joined her. Not the plumber. Someone else. Tall. Dark hair. Athletic. Wearing a baseball cap low over his eyes. I leaned forward, my jaw tightening. Who the hell was this? Lisa sat down with him like it was the most natural thing in the world. She smiled, laughed, reached across the table, and touched his arm. My stomach twisted. This wasn't some one-time fling. This wasn't a mistake. This was intimate. This was real. And that's when it hit me. The plumber was a cover. Frank had seen Lisa with the plumber, sure. But he hadn't seen what happened inside the house. He hadn't seen the Real affair. Lisa had been hiding something bigger. And now I was staring right at it. The confrontation. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay put. Every instinct in me wanted to walk over there, slam my hands on the table, and demand an explanation. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and took a picture. Lisa laughing. Lisa leaning in close. Lisa touching another man the way she used to touch me. Then I stood up and walked away. I had everything I needed. Now it was time for Lisa to face the truth. Lisa stood in the middle of the kitchen, arms crossed, her lips barely twitching into what looked like the start of a smirk. I had caught her red-handed. I had proof, texts, photos, a damn burner phone, and yet she wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't making up lies to cover herself. She was calm, and that made me uneasy. You don't even know the half of it, she said finally, tilting her head slightly, her eyes sharp, unreadable. You think this is about some stupid affair? You have no idea what's really going on. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my hand. New message. Unknown number. See you soon. My fingers tightened around the phone as I stared at the words. The sender wasn't saved, but I didn't need to guess who it was. The same person Lisa had been texting. The same one she had been meeting behind my back. But this wasn't just some flirty message. It wasn't some secret meetup being arranged. It was a warning, a threat. I looked back at Lisa. She hadn't moved. She was still standing there, watching me, almost like she was waiting for my reaction. I lifted the phone so she could see the message. You want to explain this? She exhaled through her nose, shaking her head. You're so predictable. That pissed me off more than the cheating itself. You want to try again? I asked, my voice tight, controlled. Lisa's eyes flicked toward the phone, then back to me. He's coming, she said simply. I felt my stomach drop. Oh. She let out a small, humorless laugh. The man you've been so desperate to find. I narrowed my eyes. So it's not the plumber. She scoffed. God, no. That was just convenient. A distraction. I never even slept with him. I stared at her, my brain scrambling to process everything. So all this time, you let me think Frank was right. Just so I wouldn't look deeper? Lisa tilted her head slightly, like she was almost impressed I had caught on. You were looking for the wrong man, baby, she said, her voice almost playful. And now, she leaned against the counter, her fingers tapping lazily against the marble. Now he's coming here? A slow, creeping chill ran through my spine. This wasn't just about cheating. This was something else. I had walked into this thinking my wife was just another liar, another unfaithful woman sneaking around behind my back. But now, as she stood there looking at me like she had already won, I realized Lisa hadn't been afraid of getting caught. She had been waiting for it. The truth I wasn't ready for. The knock at the door came 30 minutes later. By then, I had sat at the kitchen table, arms folded, watching Lisa like she was a ticking bomb about to go off. She had poured herself a drink, sipped it slowly, not a single damn ounce of concern in her posture. I had checked the burner phone again, no new messages, nothing that explained what the hell was happening. I had tried calling Frank. No answer. And then, finally, that knock came. Lisa stood up immediately. "Sit down," I snapped. She gave me a long look, then, for the first time all night, smiled. "Or what?" Before I could answer, she was already walking toward the door. I stood up fast, heart pounding, every nerve in my body screaming at me that this was wrong, that I had let this go too far, that I had missed something critical. Lisa opened the door, and standing there, on my damn porch, was a man I had never seen before. Tall, dark hair, lean but built, dressed casually, like he could blend into any crowd and not be noticed. His eyes flicked past Lisa and landed right on me. And the second they did, I knew. He knew who I was. Lisa leaned against the door frame, like she was greeting an old friend. "Took you long enough," she said, sipping her drink. The man stepped inside without hesitation. Into my house. I clenched my fists, planting my feet. "You got about 5 seconds to tell me who the hell you are." Lisa sighed dramatically. "God, you're so dramatic. Why don't you sit down?" I ignored her and kept my focus on the guy. He still hadn't spoken. He was studying me, sizing me up. That creeping chill I had felt earlier came back full force. Lisa finally rolled her eyes. "Fine. I'll do introductions. Ethan, meet my husband." Ethan. The name didn't mean anything to me, which was exactly why it scared the hell out of me. Lisa was cheating on me with some stranger. Not the plumber. Not a coworker. Not even a damn personal trainer. This was a man with no connections to our life. Why? I glanced at the burner phone sitting on the table, the messages still visible. "Not yet. I need more time." "You keep saying that." I'm getting impatient. My throat tightened. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife. I was dealing with something else. Something dangerous. Ethan finally spoke. "You're not what I expected." His voice was calm. Too calm. I felt my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. "Yeah? What were you expecting?" Ethan glanced at Lisa, smirking slightly. "A lot of things." Lisa smirked back. I clenched my fists harder. "You want to tell me what's going on?" I asked, my voice low. Lisa took another sip of her drink and shrugged. "I already told you. You've been looking at this the wrong way." My head was spinning. The air in the room felt too thick, too stifling. Ethan walked further inside, and then he did something that made my blood run cold. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a key. A house key. He tossed it onto the table. It clinked against the wood. I stared at it. My key. Ethan sat down in my chair, looking up at me like he was making himself comfortable. "You really didn't see it, did you?" Lisa sat down beside him. Like they had done this before. Like they had sat at my table. Together. My skin went cold. This wasn't just about an affair. This wasn't even about cheating. This was bigger. Lisa leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her eyes flashing with something dark. "You don't live here anymore," she said softly. I barely heard her. My head was buzzing. The key sat there, staring up at me like a final piece of a puzzle I hadn't even known I was building. Lisa wasn't just sleeping with this guy. She had been planning something that didn't include me. I forced myself to speak. "You really think you can just replace me?" Lisa laughed. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. And then Ethan pulled out a gun. And that's when I finally realized this had never been about cheating. This had been about getting rid of me. I stared at the gun. Ethan held it casually, like he had done this before. Like he had pulled a gun on someone and knew exactly what would happen next. His finger wasn't on the trigger, not yet, but he didn't need to make a threat. The message was already clear. Lisa exhaled dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Oh, stop being so tense. No one's shooting anyone yet." Yet. That single word set every nerve in my body on fire. I forced my breathing to stay even controlled. The second I panicked, I lost. That's what Lisa wanted. That's what Ethan wanted. I had walked right into a trap, and I had no idea what came next. How the hell did it come to this? Less than 24 hours ago, I thought I was just dealing with a cheating wife. Now, I was sitting across from my own wife and some stranger in my own damn house with a gun pointed at me. And the worst part? Lisa wasn't scared. She wasn't second-guessing anything. She was enjoying this. That was the part one couldn't wrap my head around. I had known Lisa for years. She was calculated, careful, always in control. So what the hell had I missed? I clenched my fists, keeping my expression blank. So what's the plan here, huh? I asked, my voice steady. You gonna shoot me in my own house? Make it look like an accident. Lisa smirked, but Ethan was the one who answered. We're not stupid, he said simply. Lisa took another sip of her drink, completely relaxed. Killing you would be messy, she said. We don't like messy, I scoffed. That's supposed to make me feel better? Lisa tilted her head slightly, like she was studying me. Then she smiled. You're smarter than I thought, she admitted. That threw me for a second. What? She leaned forward, resting her chin in her palm. You figured out the affair. You even found the burner phone. You started putting things together. Most men wouldn't have noticed until it was too late. Something in my gut twisted. Too late for what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced at Ethan. Ethan sighed, like he was annoyed by the conversation. Look, man, he said, this isn't personal. I let out a bitter laugh. Really? My wife cheats on me. I find out, and suddenly there's a gun in my face. But it's not personal? Ethan shrugged. You weren't supposed to find out this soon. Lisa clicked her tongue, shaking her head. We had a plan. But you're nosy. I clenched my jaw. So that's my crime? I didn't just sit back and let you screw around? Lisa smirked again. You always needed to be in control, she said. You always thought you knew everything. I let that slide. I had to. Right now, my focus was on the real problem. What the hell was about to happen to me? Because if they weren't going to kill me, what the hell was the plan? I needed to stall, get more information. So I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms like I wasn't sweating bullets inside. All right, let's hear it. What exactly were you planning? Lisa tapped her fingers on the table. It's simple. You were supposed to leave. I narrowed my eyes. Leave? Lisa nodded. Disappear. Maybe a midlife crisis. Maybe you met someone new. Maybe you just got tired of your boring little life and wanted to start over. I stared at her. You were going to make it look like I ran away. Ethan chuckled. More like convince you to leave. Something cold crawled up my spine. Lisa leaned in. We were giving you a chance, baby, she whispered, almost mockingly. You could have just walked away. But you had to go looking for answers. I shook my head. And if I did leave, then what? Lisa sighed, exasperated. Then we get everything, obviously. And just like that, the last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I exhaled slowly. The house. The money. Everything. Lisa grinned. See? I knew you'd get there eventually. They were setting me up. It wasn't just about an affair. It was about getting rid of me completely. Lisa didn't just want me out of her life. She wanted my life. And she almost got away with it. If I hadn't caught on, if I had just let things go, if I had just disappeared quietly. Lisa leaned back in her chair, looking completely at ease. I was going to give you a chance, she said. I really was. But now, she tilted her head, her smile widening. Now you've made things complicated. Ethan finally moved the gun, setting it on the table in front of him, still within reach. So we got a problem, he said simply. Lisa nodded. A big one. I kept my breathing even, my hands still. So what happens next? Lisa tapped the table with her nails, thinking. Then finally, she sighed dramatically. Well, she said, that depends on you. I forced myself to stay calm. Oh yeah. She nodded. See, we can still fix this. But you need to be smart. I glanced at Ethan. He was still watching me carefully, his posture relaxed but ready. Lisa's eyes gleamed. You leave, she said. Tonight. Take some cash, take your truck, and disappear. I stared at her. And if I don't? Lisa's smirk grew wider. Then Ethan here has to make another mess disappear. Ethan picked up the gun again, rolling his wrist slightly, like he was bored. I exhaled slowly. I was outnumbered, unarmed. Lisa had planned everything out. Every move, every backup plan, every way to get me out of the picture. But she had underestimated one thing. I wasn't going to play her game. I glanced at the burner phone sitting on the table. Lisa followed my gaze, then chuckled. What? You think you're going to call for help? Go ahead. Try. I smiled. Then I reached into my pocket. Lisa's smirk vanished the second she saw what I was holding. My real phone. And the screen? It was recording. Every single word. Lisa's face drained of color. Ethan stiffened. I exhaled dramatically, mocking her. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, using her own words against her. Lisa lunged for the phone. I was faster. I grabbed it tight, shoved back my chair, and ran. And behind me, I heard Ethan yell. Then the gun went off.